Hey folks, today I wanted to talk to you about how much you can actually expect to earn on average as a flow artist performer. And then I wanted to debunk some of the myths that I see online. So let's get right into it. The first myth I see online is when people say, I don't leave the house for less than $500. Okay, that's great and that's an awesome flex, but the majority of flow artist gigs, performance gigs, book for like $300 max in Portland. The reason I know this is I have asked the absolute elite top level flow arts performers in this city for 5 years straight. I always ask them how much they do gigs for, and I perform for them. So I know how much I'm getting paid. I also book 5 to 10 gigs a year on Gig Salad, which is a competitive marketplace. And I also reach out to wedding planners, both as a DJ and a performer. And I book, I don't know, 2 or 3 weddings a year that way. And it's hard to get more than $400 for that. So the elitist gatekeeping flow artists who tell you they don't leave the house for less than $500 are purposefully omitting a lot of information. So what they're doing is they're describing what it takes to maintain an elite level. They're not saying what it took to get there. And a lot of coaches actually have this problem. Not me, though. I have kept meticulous notes since day one of this journey in journals and blogs so that we could have honest conversations about this. My goal is to get beginners up to their first $500 gig, and then I'll pass you off to the elite coaches because that's not me. So what you need to know is when you first start, you'll be doing like little farmers markets, retirement communities, hopefully a kid's birthday party. Those are really fun for like $0 to $100, maybe $200 if you're like a really good looking person with great marketing. But those are exposure gigs. You use those gigs to get a bunch of photos so that you can use those photos to get $150, $200, $250 gigs. And what I just described, you're going to do that for like 2 or 3 years. Maybe if you're a super fast learner, you're in great shape, you have a beautiful smile and a warm vocal tone, and you're really good at sales, you'll start closing for like $300 to $500 in your first couple years. But I have those things, and it took me a long time to be able to get $500. And you really got to sell it because, like Gig Salad is a competitive marketplace. There's other artists out there willing to close for $50 to $100, no matter what city you're in. And a lot of clients, they think it's just spinning things in circles. They don't know what flow arts are. They don't know the levels of skill. They don't know what three-poi is. They don't know what boogang is. They think it's batons and hula hoops. So due to their ignorance about our arts community, they just don't see the value of spending 2 to 3 times as much. So what I'm trying to say is get started for free. It's okay. After a couple years, if you're still performing for free, that's when you need to reflect and start to try to book for money. Start using invoices, start hiring a marketing firm, use AI to create beautiful marketing photos that still kind of look like you at least. I don't care. I'm not one of those anti-AI, anti-marketing flow artists. I'm like, do whatever it takes to get on stage. The most important part of your journey in those first couple years is stage time and media. So get photos and videos of you with a crowd. That's the absolute first thing you need. It's kind of the bandwagon effect combined with like big group validation. That, psychologically speaking, is more powerful than a video of you doing a sick combo or a video of an epic fire shot of you doing a burn off, right? It's the difference between somebody who has proven to make a crowd happy and somebody who does a cool thing on a camera, okay? So now let's talk about gatekeeping. I really see a lot of gatekeeping in the flow arts community. Why? Well, first of all, my third eye is open. I can see right through so much social BS. I can tell exactly what's going on. A lot of the artists who tell you to charge a lot, and I have a funny story on this, they do it because they know you'll never get it. They know they're the only ones with that much marketing material, and if they tell everyone in the city to charge $500, they're going to be the only one who gets it because they're the only one who has marketing material and sales skills at that level. So don't fall for it, okay? That is gatekeeping. Now, it is good to work with your community to talk about prices, but you definitely don't want to level set with them really ever. Like that's not smart. My story is when I was in Florida, I tried to level set with my local fire spinners, and they all said, yeah, we're doing a minimum of 200, which still is pretty low. And this is in a bougie part of Florida. I had one recurring gig at a luau at a really, really nice resort. I said, "Hey guys, you're only paying me whatever, $75 for this fire show. I'm going to need 200." And it was two dudes. They looked at each other and they laughed at me. They were like, "Troy, you're lucky we like you because we are not going to pay you that. And if anybody else said that to us, we would kick them out and never hire them again." They wound up paying me like 125 because they respected me. And then, by the way, the reason they liked me is because I'd been working with them for years as the paddleboard instructor on site. But I digress. The whole flow arts part of it was total BS. The women that I went and had this long meeting with, and we had coffee, and we're like, "Yeah, we're going to charge $200. We're worth it." I think it was gatekeeping. I think they were planting seeds so that I would like not be able to get other gigs. They knew I was hella competitive. And so what they did is they created a situation where my expectation would never be met by the client or the market. So just watch out. A lot of this is subconscious. People aren't actively trying to sabotage you, but they definitely have a scarcity mindset and they're afraid of losing their gigs to you. I hate to say it, but when you're a young gun coming up in the scene, you're typically in better shape. You're honestly sometimes a little bit better to look at than like somebody who's a little bit older. And I like hate to even say those words, but like older people gatekeep younger people because younger people don't need as much money. They don't have families. They don't have expensive lifestyles oftentimes, and they're hungry. So the people who are in the gig, the older folks, they sort of do whatever it takes, and their subconscious is driving them to stomp their competition in any way they can. Now, you shouldn't have like a negative mentality around this. It is human nature. It's okay. Don't ever get mad at someone for trying to level set with you. Just say, "Yeah, I hear you. I'm gonna do my absolute best to earn $200 per gig because that's what you're charging, and we're on a team." But in the back of your mind, like just know that there could be a gatekeeping element to it. So the next thing to keep in mind is going to be the geography of where you are, right? I mentioned earlier, like if you're in Manhattan or New York or Chicago, in a city that has a lot more money, you will be able to charge more. But the majority of us, I don't think actually live in a city where promoters have $500 to drop. I think most of us live in cities where we can expect like $100 to $250 for these smaller gigs. Let's say it's I don't know, kid's birthday party in a suburb. Those are really common when you're getting started. Honestly, $100 is pretty good. If you just come up and do one song or two songs, that's pretty good. Now, once you start to involve like crowd engagement and clinics, and you give a little gift like a giveaway, or you do a special song or a costume that matches the theme, or like I DJ those events or bring my sound system and lasers for them to use, then you can start to add more and charge more. But if you don't have a legitimate website with a bunch of reviews and like a ton of photos of proof of concept and like perfect professional language when you're on the phone or via email, I just don't think it's going to close for any more than 250. So when you're first getting started, your goal is not money. Like if you need the money, you should do Uber or sell plasma or do something else that's like money focused. The arts is a very slow burn. It's a very slow climb to reach an elite level because no matter how good you are in your living room, performing is a totally different skill. Reason I know this is I've busted out some sick three-poi tricks at a kid's birthday party. Nobody cared. But then I did a burn off with like a baton and they went crazy. They loved it, right? Obviously, one is at a high technical level, one is very easy. And it goes to show that the artist does the art for themselves in their living room. But when you're on stage, you are there for the client. Okay, I'm rambling a bit about philosophy. Let's focus on those smaller gigs. Perhaps it'll be like a really small wedding. There's a lot of weddings that happen that have small budgets, despite what you think. They like will have it at a church where they know the guy, so the venue's free. They'll make their own food, they'll clean up for themselves, and they'll like have the uncle DJ. So their budget really is like, I've seen weddings with a budget of less than $1,000, and it was still a beautiful wedding. And if you can get $100 or at least get them to cover the fuel or the travel, that's great. But if you can get photos of you, and especially video of you in front of the bride and groom performing, just bring a tripod or have somebody random film it or have your safety film it, that's extremely valuable. That's how you start to charge for weddings. In other videos, I've gone into great detail about how free samples are a critical part of like big sales process. But in this video, I'm simply going to say focus on those first couple weddings, just getting photos of you doing it in front of the crowd. That's going to be what allows you to charge more later. School events, that's another one where like the PTA or the PTO, the Parent Teacher Association or organization, they're very skeptical and they don't often raise a lot of money and they don't just have like a wellspring to pull hundreds of dollars from. You start small and you say, hey, I'm here to do it for the kids. I love kids. What you're really there for is the photos and the videos. It does get a little tricky because you can't just use photos and videos of children. There's laws against that. I think it's, I don't know, like HEPA or one of those acronyms where you cannot have children's faces because if they're under the age of 18, they can't consent to being in it. So you can blur the photos or you can, have a shot from the audience looking at you and you're allowed to have the backs of their heads. So that's extremely valuable at the beginning because then once you have that photo and video, you can start pitching to other schools for actual money because you have proof that you do it professionally. Another one is like restaurant pop-ups, like grand openings and then restaurant events. They love to have like well-dressed fire eaters inside. I've seen that one a lot in bougie restaurants, but I've also just done like fire spinning outside in a little plaza between restaurants where it just kind of attracts people and they go, oh, this restaurant has cool events. I'm going to eat here tonight or I'm going to come back in the future. So you're basically marketing for them. And when you're getting started, you do want to charge for those. Like you're basically like a billboard or something for them. And they will be ready to pay. Say, look, I'll do a safe fire show that will bring people around. And then you get a bunch of photos and videos of you in front of the restaurant. And then you give those to the business. You give those to the restaurant. Okay, so right out of the gate, you can provide value-added service for them. Most new modern restaurants will have a social media profile. You can tag them. And like part of your agreement with that restaurant when you're booking the gig is, hey, I'll get you some cool social media content. I'm good at filming. I'm good at getting photos. And they'll be like, yeah, most restaurant owners don't really get it. They're like, I know we're supposed to be active on social media. Like really what I'm focused on is the food quality, but I guess. And they'll be kind of reluctant, but they'll be like, yeah, I know we're supposed to do the thing, so we'll delegate it to you. I've had some good success that way. Like in Florida, there's a bunch of restaurants on the beach, which was super awesome and I was down by the water's edge. So there's, nobody can be in the water. So I can kind of not worry about a little kid walking up. It's safer. It's in the sand. It's like a beautiful photo, especially if there's a sunset. And I went after a lot of beach restaurants in Florida and I booked them. It took a while and I was able to get paid I think an average of $300 per gig because I always did the first one for free. I would get the photos, get the videos, send them to the social media manager for the restaurant. And they're like, yo, that was awesome. We would love to do that again. It seems like the crowd really liked it. It seems like it fits the vibe. You're safe. You're professional. Yes, we will hire you for this in the future. Elite flow artists will not tell you that. They won't tell you that style of sales. They'll be like, I'll never do a free show. It's like, if you do a free show for $0 and then book for $300 twice a week for a year, right? That's $600 a week. I have closed a deal like that because of a free show. It was totally worth it, right? The average maybe drops down to like $275 over the course of the year because you have that one $0 gig. But that's the mentality you have to have. It's like life is a lot longer than you think. And the only way you can have that long-term mentality is if you already have money to begin with. If you need that gig to pay your rent, like you don't have any leverage. You don't have the ability to do a free gig. You don't have the ability to prove that you're safe, that you're entertaining, that you're funny, that you're engaging, and that it will be a return on investment, right? It's a tough balance, I think I'm rambling at this point. And I just want you to know that you kind of got to get your money right if you're going to get those big gigs. You need to be able to do a couple free ones at the beginning of your journey. And I am elitist in my own ways, but I am not elitist in this way. Like, I want everybody to have stage time. Would I give up my gigs for some noob to do a bad job just so they can get stage time? No, I'll admit it. Like, I would block someone and tell the client, no, don't hire them. They're not good enough yet. Or I would talk to that person and be like, hey, maybe you should start somewhere else. Low key, like, I'll admit it. I don't want to give up my best gigs. That's why I encourage people like, hey, take that energy and go apply it where you can actually get the gig. No, it won't be paid as much. No, it won't. The videos won't pop off online. Yes, the theme might be lame. You know, it might be you want to be a clown and maybe the theme is like K-pop or something. That's where you start. The whole myth of this is that you can just jump to an elite level if you're a really good spinner. I don't care how good you are at spinning and juggling. If you can't put together a coherent show with a series of points throughout the show where the audience knows to cheer, they understand what you're doing, you're safe, and you're communicative throughout the process, and your what's the word? Like your musicality is on point, it's not even worth trying. Until you have all those things locked in, don't try to charge money. Okay. Until you go from being a flow artist to a performer, you will not be able to charge money. Now, there are some really confusing gigs that throw people off, and those are like go-go sets at like raves and music festivals. Like I just booked one this morning for $250 for 2 hours of go-going with my friend. That's freaking sick. Like I oftentimes do those for way less than that. I did it through my friend booked me for the gig. So I'm like, sweet, that's a great payout. Hopefully the show is cool. That confuses people because they think that the like flow arts, flow state, flow style of their go-go set will be appreciated by a wedding or a kid's birthday or a library. Like, no, those are two very different things. When you're go-going, you're like the cherry on top, right? You have these little blinky lights, and then there's like $100,000 light setup behind you. You're something for people to look at when they want to just connect with a human in their inebriated mind when they're at a rave, or sober if that's your thing. But when you're like a stage act or like the focal point, you know, of a kid's birthday or a wedding or something like that, you're not just flowing. You have to know that. And elite flow artists really don't describe the difference between like flowing and sort of ambient performing and then like a stage act. $500 stage act, $100 go-go set typically. Yes, you can get the $250 ones, but those are rare. I'm not an expert on that. I've done a bunch of them and they don't usually pay as well, but they're extremely fun. And then you get an ego boost from it too, and some like really good footage. So all that is to say there's a big difference between a $500 gig and a $100 gig. And you cannot jump straight to the $500 gig, in my opinion. There are people who have done it, but that's kind of an exception to the rule. Usually you start at some weird smaller gigs and you work your way up. And I am happy to help you do that if you read my book, Flow Wisdom 1, So You Want to Be a Flow Arts Performer. It's also available as an audiobook. It was written with no AI. That was just me over the course of a year, just really focusing on what it takes to get beginners started. Okay, so as I reflect on the stages to go from a free gig to like my biggest gig I ever booked was $3,000, but I was also including a DJ package for that for a wedding. I find that there's like roughly 4 stages. There's the beginner stage. That's when you're doing things for free, maybe $100 to just cover your costs and to get the photos. Then there's the competent local, where you're getting a couple people reaching out to you because they've seen your posts on social media and because you've helped them at gigs, or you've safetied for them, or you've gone to the local jams and shown skill as both a safety and a spinner. And then there's like the packaged professional stage, the 3rd stage. That's where you're starting to, people are reaching out to you for weddings. You're closing a lot on Gig Salad and the Bash. And then the 4th stage is like, I put full entertainment brand phase, which is where like they're not hiring Troy to the G. They're not hiring Troy Grice. They're hiring like controlled burn, and they're getting a whole experience out of it. When they hire a brand, they're hiring the feeling that the crowd gets. When they're hiring a beginner, they're just hiring some dude. This is very philosophical, and I won't go too deep into it. But like as you travel up the phases, you kind of become less of an individual and a person, and you become more of a concept. When you first start, you're Troy the Poi Boy. When you're at that 4th stage, the entertainment brand, now you're controlled burn. Okay, I'm talking about myself here. So you never really know which phase you're in, sort of. Like, you obviously know if you're a beginner, you just started. But like all of a sudden one day you'll be doing a gig and you'll just think to yourself, yo, I am professional. Like my costume, my tricks, my demeanor, my makeup, my musicality, my choreography. I was on time. I'm a good safety. I have choreography that nobody else does. You'll just kind of reflect and say, oh, I guess I'm professional. There's no certificate. There's nobody going to like high five you at right as soon as the gig's done. And they're like, you did it, kiddo. Now you're finally a packaged professional. It's just kind of a loose phase that exists in your mind, and it affects your demeanor overall. So, what I wrote was flow arts income is not linear with skill. It's correlated with marketing, business positioning, niche, client type, geography, risk tolerance, and branding. Yeah, none of those are skill. Like a lot of it has to do with how you make the client feel throughout the process, more so than how good you are at like the Goddess Machine or Zan's Diamond or site swaps while juggling. Your social skill and your social proof dictate your paycheck way more than your flow art skill. I would actually be open to an argument on that. I would love to go back and forth on like which is more important, your marketing and your social proof or your flow art skill. I would change my opinion on that. Like I'm open minded, but at this point, from what I understand, it's like how tight is your brand? How shareable are your social media posts? How professional is your invoice? How professional is your quote? And do you offer custom packages for people? Right? Because these clients, it's a big risk to take on a fire spinner or even an LED spinner in some cases. Not only because you could burn the place down, but also because it could look totally stupid. Like if they hire an LED spinner who gets drunk and falls over, like it makes them look bad because they approved you. So like you have to appear not risky to get paid well, right? You know, I've hired, I don't know, I have hired flow artists who were a huge risk. I had one guy like stab a dude in the nuts with a fire sword in the first show I ever hired him for. He just jabbed him right in the nuts. And I was like, dude, like you're gonna get me fired. Um, that was crazy. I've also hired a chick who we came to a kid's birthday party and she was like freaking vaping. Like she just like took it out. I was like, yo, we're at a kid's, like we're at their house. Um, and then she messed up one of her tricks, you know, on stage at the kid's birthday party and was like swearing. Like that's very risky. That, you know, I booked the gig, but I brought her as the safety and fellow performer. That was risky for me because I was going to get a bad review or get kicked out or not get paid, you know, whatever. So risk is one of those things that people don't talk about, that elitists won't really talk about. In order to appear not risky, some things you want to put in your profile is like fully insured, fully safe, proven track record, you know, things like that to subtly indicate to the client, hey, there's very little risk in hiring me. I've done this enough. I have answered all the frequently asked questions about safety and timing and choreography and about like PR and branding. Like I am not risky. There's a lot of value in reducing risk. Okay. What I recommend, get you some fire insurance. It's like $350. Being able to put that in your profile is going to allow you to charge more. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good. I think I've expressed the difference between the elite level and the beginning level and why these people speak about paying a certain way and how somebody can climb the ladder to reach that $500 average. A lot of it depends on geography. So if you live an hour outside of, I don't know, Des Moines, Iowa, like you're going to have to travel into a big city. That's where all the money is, and that's where they value art. Typically, you can find some farm parties and like barn parties where they'll pay $500, where it's like a successful farmer. But most of the gig salad leads I see are like, you know, in Seattle or Portland, and that's where you can get the big bucks. So it is based on geography. So if you are out in the boonies, start looking at doing those library gigs, those community gigs where you'll be able to get photos of you in front of a crowd. I think at this point, the best thing for most flow artists to do is to like reduce their expectations and don't compete with elite level performers. Compete with yourself. Okay. If you want to earn $500, you charge $100 this year, 200 the year after that, 300 the year after that, because consistency and performing like once a month is going to treat you way better than performing once every 6 months for $500. Being comfortable on stage, having a safety that shows up, knowing your choreography, and like not having a ton of anxiety of looking forward to your 1 gig a year that's like 6 months away, there's just no way to compare it. Plus, if you do 5 $100 gigs, that's $500 versus one $500 gig, that's $500. You earn the same amount. I would really like to have a conversation with somebody who thinks differently from me on this one. So if you believe that like you can go from spinning in your living room to earning $500, I know there's some people who have done that. Let's talk. I would really like to hear your perspective, because all I'm doing is projecting. I'm just sharing my experience and what I've seen in Florida and Portland, but it's a whole wide world out there. As always, I really appreciate you guys listening and your input, because this is how we make the community grow. Have a great day.